Our next video in this series includes definitions about ethics and about culture and about compliance. So we always start with the definition of ethics. If there are 7 billion people on our globe, there are 7 billion definitions of ethics. But today I'd like you to think about the following definition as the one we will use for this video. Ethics is about making tough choices. It's as simple as that. Ethics describes the criteria or principles that we use, me and you, when selecting a course of action in the face of competing values. So what does this definition tell us? It tells us that ethics is how we make decisions. Ethics is descriptive, not prescriptive. And ethics permits us to think through various courses of actions and their consequences in the face of values that seem on the surface to be competing. Ethics helps our thinking and our decision-making. It also enables us to act with courage and confidence. That's why we say, for purposes of today's videos and this module, that ethics is about how responsible leaders make tough choices. Ethics is also about behavior. It's not only how you decide, your thinking processes, but what you actually do with your hands, with your resources, with your behavior. Imagine, if you would, the classic iceberg. As we know, an iceberg is visible above the surface of the water, but the vast majority of the bulk, the mass of the iceberg, is below the water line. So you can see the tip of the iceberg, and we'll call that behavior. But what lies under the water line that's not visible? Attitudes, how you perceive and feel about a situation, your belief system, your culture, and at the very bottom of that iceberg, way below the waterline, are your values. So what we see about ethics is only on the surface. We can only see your behavior. But ethical behavior, the ethical behavior of responsible leaders, rests upon attitudes, beliefs, culture, and your values. So not only is ethics about making tough choices, it's how you act on those choices as influenced by culture, values, attitudes, and beliefs. So you can see that ethics really is a complex topic in the public service as well as elsewhere around the globe. Let me share with you one more definitional concept, and that is how culture is intimately linked to those bedrock core ethical values. Imagine that you're seeing two circles, one behind the other. The bedrock or the base circle is values, and for our purposes, values are described as that which you believe, whether expressed or unexpressed. So values represent your core moral belief system in respect to the oughts, the shoulds, the how you believe with your better self that you should act and behave. This is what we mean by values. Values motivate behavior, as we saw in the conversation using the iceberg imagery. Values also are the predicate circle that support or are behind culture. Your values influence the culture in which you live and work, and your culture influences the values or your belief system. They are in what we like to call a virtuous circle. So how do values and culture fit together? Values is behind culture, as we've described that there is a virtuous circle or cycle in which your values influence the culture, and the culture in which you operate, in which you live, and in which you work influences your values. That's the virtuous circle. How do we define culture? In the words of Edgar Schein of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, culture has a very specific definition. Culture is described as the social norms and rules of behavior that express our beliefs about our identities, how work is accomplished, and how we relate one to each other. Culture tells us who we are, how to behave, and how to feel good about ourselves. Our culture, our national culture, our society's culture, our family or tribal culture, and our organizational or work culture. In all of those settings, culture is the same, because culture is the agreed upon norms and rules that tell us how to behave, who we are, our identities, how we do work, how we get our jobs done, and most importantly, how we relate one to the other. When you understand that culture has many elements to it and operates in many spheres of our lives, you can see how our ethical values, the oughts that we just talked about, influence who we are, what we believe about ourselves, our identities, how we relate to each other, and how we do our work. In the next video of this series, we will talk a little bit more about ethics and culture and how they influence each other.